that we all please have our listening ears on, and the speaking is done from those on stage or on the video. If you choose to interject, we have people in the room that will help you leave the building. We do have some tight timelines this morning, so my job is to keep an eye on that. And keeping that in mind, we should probably kick off. So, first up this morning, representing Democracy New Zealand, Martin Langford.
Good morning. Right. 2 minutes has started. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm Martin Langford, and I've been living in Napier for 26 years, working as a dental surgeon. I'm the Democracy New Zealand candidate for Napier. Democracy New Zealand wants to be the conscience of Parliament. We want to bring back honesty, integrity, humanity, ethical behaviour, and indeed morality. The current regime does not appear to care for the average hard-working Kiwi. The opposition is stuck in neutral gear, only getting vocal now because the election is nigh. A vote for Democracy New Zealand is a vote for a common-sense party with candidates with life experience, many of us small business owners, farmers, engineers, financial advisors, and others with building, teaching, and community development experience. Running a dental practice, I understand the challenges of small businesses. We have survived the GFC and lockdowns. That's good. I fully appreciate how decisions made by the government adversely affect small businesses. The escalator effect of raising minimum wage, adding another stat day, 2 weeks of domestic violence leave, 10 sick days a year, mental health days included in that can roll over. When a party helpfully suggests a 5th week of annual leave, I shake my head, and then they wonder why treatment is so expensive. Recent experiences has revealed to me how heavily employment law is geared towards the employee, unjustifiably unfair. Democracy New Zealand aims to make positive change in Parliament from within. We stand for democracy, unity, equality, for freedom, supporting the Bill of Rights, family, supporting policies that are pro-family, both economic and social aspects. Farmers and food producers. Matt King is a beef farmer and an ex-MP living in Northland. He understands the issues. Voting for Democracy New Zealand, both candidate and party, is a vote for positive change. Thank you for listening.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Mark Hutchinson. It's nice to finally be in front of a crew that's my own, coming from business. I'm from Napier. I grew up here, and I brought my kids back here to raise them, and I've built my own successful business from scratch here in Hawke's Bay. What I want to achieve is to bring my depth of business skill to creating a thriving economy where our kids can all grow up with the opportunity to get into great work. And I think that to create that kind of economy here in Hawke's Bay will also create the kind of place that will bring talent here to set up businesses. I'm looking at some of that talent in front of me actually, and run really innovative, amazing businesses here in Hawke's Bay, so that there are great jobs for our kids. So in my career, I've worked with people across all different political backgrounds. So for the first 10 years of my career, I was a clinical psychologist, and I learned a lot about what our families and young people need to thrive. We need to understand the investments we need to make sure that everybody can make the most of their opportunities. The last 20 years of my career, I've been working in business, working with senior leaders to help them run their organisations more effectively. In the UK, I worked with big organisations like Sainsbury's, doing a big culture change there in a turnaround. Royal Bank of Scotland and BP, amongst others. I was shoulder tapped to work in Barclays to be their organisational development manager, which means running change and leadership during the GFC, which was a very turbulent time in banking. And since I've been back in New Zealand, I've worked with some of the CEOs and top teams of New Zealand's biggest businesses like Fletcher, Fonterra, New Zealand Post and Wakatahi. Look, my promise to you is that if elected, I will be a strong voice in the Labour caucus and in Parliament for business, because that is what I am, a businessman. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you for the organizers for making this possible. I'm Paweł Milewski. I'm ACT Party's candidate for Napier. I'm running a party vote campaign, so this is not about me personally, it's about ACT Party and what it has to offer if you decide to put it in at the heart of this new government. I'm originally from Poland. I moved to this country from London about 15 years ago. I'm a business owner. I've been running an engineering consultancy in New Zealand for the last more than 10 years. As a structural engineer, I have a thing for numbers. I like the numbers to stack up. So this is why I'm with ACT Party. We are the only party that has positive relationship with numbers, in my opinion. We have a fully costed alternative budget. That budget shows how the government waste could be cut down, how the out-of-control borrowing could be stopped, and how we could give a tax break to businesses that need relief and to the workers. It also shows how this could be achieved without cutting any of the frontline services. Also, as a business owner, I understand how important security is to businesses and how they can easily be disrupted by crime. Again, this is why I stand for ACT Party, because I know that ACT Party's crime policies would restore law and order in this country. The fact that we have gang members actively campaigning against that policy at the moment is the only recommendation that it needs really. Finally, as a recent immigrant, I believe in an open society where people are judged on their contribution and where government help is directed by need, not by ancestry. And this is another reason why I'm with ACT Party. So today I ask you to loan your vote to ACT this election for better New Zealand. Thank you.
Kia ora. I'm Julianne from the Green Party. I'm originally from Auckland. Most of my management experience was in the UK. I was a management consultant with Investors and People's Scotland for many years and worked with over 100 companies and organisations. And my experience showed me that there's no contradiction between being a successful business and being one that's environmentally, socially and ethically responsible, because it's simply good business. New Zealand is renowned as a producer of premium products, a reputation based on good environmental standards, high standards of animal welfare and decent pay and conditions for workers. And of course we can do better. There might be some cost that involved for some in that, but what's the likely cost of doing nothing or repealing existing environmental standards? We saw the impact of Cyclone Gabrielle on many businesses, and such events will become more frequent and unpredictable. The cost of this will vastly outweigh the cost of doing something. You already know that providing fair wages and optimum working conditions makes good business sense and greater productivity, well-being, reduced absenteeism and staff turnover. And I'm sure that most of you, at least, will want to see an end to unnecessary animal suffering. There's huge advantages to embracing a green economy, including the creation of thousands of jobs, the provision of cleaner, cheaper energy, and energy-efficient buildings, and the opportunity for New Zealand businesses to respond to increasing demand for sustainable ethical goods and services, which the Green Party will support the transition to sustainable and ethical practices. So, it's good business sense, and I urge you, for the sake of the planet, and for the sake of good business, for the sake of ethical standards, which I'm sure you will all uphold, I urge you to party vote Green. Thank you.
Good morning everybody, I'm Katie Nimmin, I'm the National Party candidate for Napier, and I'd just like to start by just telling everybody the length and breadth of the Napier electorate, because it goes from Awatoto up to Puketiti into the Kaweka Ranges, all the way up to Matuai, and just down to south of Gisborne and Muriwai. That entire area have got some very diverse issues. They've got a broad range of businesses, they've got agriculture, they've got horticulture, we have industries wide-ranging, and all of them need a strong representative. I've grown up in business. Business has been my life, and primarily in the service to community. I grew up a truck driver's daughter. I saw firsthand what happens in the world and the country when you change regulations, you put up the cost of business, and inevitably the cost of product and the cost to the person receiving that product goes up. Businesses can't continue to bear rising costs because it gets passed on immediately. I've seen that in my career in passenger transport as well. You continue to put up minimum wage faster than people can cope with it, and the next thing that happens, on the 1st of April, we regret to inform you that as of whatever day it is, our rates are going up by 2% or 4% or whatever is required. We cannot keep doing that to businesses. Now, in my time in business, I have been a staunch advocate for Hawke's Bay. When I was working in Auckland, my friends jokingly called me the ambassador for Hawke's Bay because, of course, I love the region so much. And when I returned to the region, interestingly, within a couple of years, I won the Hawke's Bay Tourism Ambassador Award, so that sort of self-perpetuated. But we do not grow without working together. And the National Party wants to reduce the cost for every person in New Zealand, because the cost to business is a cost to every New Zealander. So a vote for National and a vote for Katie Nimmin will make a big difference in getting New Zealand back on track. Thanks.
Good morning, I'm Anna Hawke, your local MP for Tukituki. Take a look around Hastings and see what's been achieved in just 6 years under the Labor government. 48 school projects upgrades built, 2,000 free apprenticeships, 12,000 school lunches are being served every day, $40 million to get pipes in the ground and water infrastructure to build 4,000 more homes, 333 social homes built and another 201 under construction and in the pipeline. That's not bad compared to the 200 we lost and only 6 built in the 9 years of National. We've had $40 million into sporting infrastructure. We've got a regional aquatic centre that is world class. We've got a $15 million going into drinking water infrastructure, and $12 million for an innovation food hub. Every single one of these projects and more is growing jobs and backing local businesses to do the work. And now the government has invested $900 million into the cyclone recovery to get roads, bridges and flood resilience. And we've fully costed a 4-lane expressway. And today, I am absolutely proud to announce $1.1 billion to build our Hawke's Bay Regional Hospital. I've made it my mission to get things done for Tukituki. I'm asking you to vote for a hard-working local MP who gets things done and will do more for this region, backing business.
Hi, I'm Catherine Webb, National Party candidate for Tukituki. When I came back to Hawke's Bay 13 years ago, after working in London at the BBC and as a TV1 news reporter in Wellington, I saw an economy that was about to boom under a national government because farmers and growers were doing well. When farmers and growers are doing well, everyone is doing well. I've worked in horticulture for the past several years, head of marketing for Bostock, New Zealand, and sitting on the board of New Zealand Apples and Pears. And part of my role is standing up on the global stage, promoting the premium produce that we grow here in Tukituki, adding value to our products, diversifying our products in Asia. As a food-producing region, we have huge potential here in Tukituki. But I have seen firsthand, for the past 6 years, a Labor government create regulation, bureaucracy, compliance, and hammer our growers and our farmers, inflicting a war on our primary sector. I've decided that now is the time to stand up to be the next local Tuki MP and back our farmers, back our growers and back our businesses, because that's what's going to get our Hawke's Bay economy ahead. Let's not strangle our agriculture exports. Let's move forward with a national government which will reduce the red tape, reduce the bureaucracy, grow our agriculture exports. Let's get the infrastructure built that we so desperately need, that 4-lane expressway, which creates productivity. Let's get rid of the unfair taxes, the fuel tax, no agriculture in the ETS. National will strengthen this economy, and I will be a really, really strong advocate for a food-producing region. There's a clear choice in this election. It's more dysfunction and divide with Te Pāti Māori, the Greens and Labour, or a strong national government. Vote red for Tuki Tuki and Party Vote National.
E te kaikarake I te ata nei tēnā koe whakatūwhera tā tātou hui I tēnei rā. Ki te mana whenua, karanga mai, karanga mai, karanga mai. Huri noa kia tātou, ti hei mauri ora. Kia ora whānau, my name's Kushla Kangari Manuel, and I'm the Ikaroa Rāwhiti candidate for Labour. I live in a place called Rangitukia on the farm where I was raised. Back in the day where grass grew itself and sheep and beef just seemed to get fat on their own. Times have changed. Hoi anō, I went into business about 20 years ago because, like you, I love where I'm from, I love the region I live in, and I wanted to stay there. Eventually, I ended up running one of the more unique businesses, I think, in probably New Zealand, and that is the Ngāti Po East Coast Rugby Union. Unique in that we had to harness the fact that not only is it a business, but our point of uniqueness was that it's the only iwi-based union in the world. And harnessing that meant we turned around a deficit in 1 year and have grown financially every year. Hoi anō, this is not just about Ngāti Po East Coast and Kushla and Rangitukia. One of the things I'm really proud about that Labour has done in terms of, we know the Māori economy is huge and growing. And having a chapter in the Free Trade Agreement that actually acknowledges Te Tiriti and the uniqueness that the Māori economy comes is a huge opportunity for growth. As I've traversed the Ikaroa Rāwhiti electorate, I've heard from both iwi and Māori business people who want to do big trade, i.e. getting merino out of the East Coast from Pakihiroa Station, but it's also about promoting entrepreneurship. Panicking because I'm looking at the clock. I'm out there listening to our whānau and I will advocate for you so that we can continue to grow as individuals, as whānau, as hapu, as iwi, and of course to promote procurement for Māori businesses so that we get more tier 1 because we are out there doing the mahi. Hoi anō, tēnā rā wātu koutou katoa.
Mōrena koutou, te kaitarakia, tēnā koe moto tūwhetanga o tātou hui. Kia ora, Mika Whaiti, born in Te Rāwhiti and raised here in Hawke's Bay. It's wonderful to be here, thank you to all those organisers. I'm proudly standing as the candidate for Te Pāti Māori in the Ikaroa Rāwhiti seat. The fastest growing economy in Aotearoa is the Māori economy, valued at $70 billion. And we're only touching the tip of the iceberg. We have a different, unique look on the economy, and I want to use Tuarupaki. Tuarupaki is a family trust, northwest of Taupo. It is not a hapu, it is not an iwi, it is a Māori family trust. They contribute 20 to 25% to the Taupo economy. This is off their whenua. They have geothermal power, they have hot houses, and they have a native nursery, and they're also big shareholders in Medika. This is an example of a growing economy right here in Hawke's Bay, the Māori economy. We have Māori farmers, we have Māori growers. Te Pāti Māori is talking to them. We're trying to lift up our Māori economy because a Māori economy that lifts for them lifts for everybody. We saw that in COVID when all our maraes opened our doors, not just for Māori. So don't be afraid when we talk about a Māori economy. We're actually talking about the whole region of Hawke's Bay. Our biggest asset in any business is its people, and Te Pāti Māori's policy is lifting them up. So we talk about a $2.5 billion Oranga Whenua, Oranga Tangata Fund that is going to gear towards Māori small businesses, but also build homes. We see the value in Māori operating as entrepreneurs. Why? Because they generally employ their own. They have a long-term vision. We're not here just to make and click the tickets about profit. Aotearoa New Zealand needs to look at business in a different way. Long-term, investing in its people and deriving economic benefit to the economy. I'm running a two-tip campaign. A candidate vote for Meka Whaiti, a party vote for Te Pāti Māori, and if you're not a Māori, you can vote Te Pāti Māori. Māori ora.
So thank you one and all, and pretty good marks on the timing, to be fair, across the board. So I'll just give the candidates the opportunity to leave the stage now, and we'll move to the videos from the round of applause for all our candidates as they leave. So, as we said at the outset, we now have contributions from the various party leaders, and as Carla said, the opportunity to be here was offered to all party leaders. Not all were able to be here or chose to contribute, but we do have 4 video clips, and then we have one leader who's here in person that I'll introduce following the video clips. So again, these presentations have a brief to address issues specific to the business community, and we'll roll the videos, please.
Well, hello, Hawke's Bay business owners. My name's Matt King. I'm party leader, Democracy NZ. Hawke's Bay is a region with a rich tapestry of businesses from vineyards to orchards to manufacturing and tourism. And we understand the challenges and the opportunities in this unique economic landscape. Now, our party is made up of Kiwis who have decades of experience in farming, in security and community and health, education, construction, infrastructure and finance. Many of our candidates are small business owners, and we know how to make things work in a sensible and a sustainable way. Democracy NZ is committed to supporting local businesses in the Hawke's Bay, and here are our key policies that will directly affect you. Firstly, we aim to support local agriculture, especially following Cyclone Gabrielle. We need to work with landowners to restore productivity, and we will invest in infrastructure and technology to enhance this productivity, helping you to thrive and export Hawke's Bay's finest products to New Zealand and the world. Secondly, we understand the challenges of bureaucracy and regulation that sometimes hinder our local businesses. Our commitment is to cut unnecessary red tape, making it easier for you to focus on what you do best, serving our community and creating jobs. Democracy NZ stands for less government overreach and intrusion in our lives. And finally, we will address the crime crisis that's prevalent all over New Zealand, but has definitely increased in Hawke's Bay following Cyclone Gabrielle. Crime is at a record high. There are increases of more than 20% across a wide range of offences, and robberies are up a whopping 49% over the past year. The government's policy of reducing the prison population and going soft on crime has been a massive failure, with round raids now a regular occurrence. Businesses are being forced to close or employ security guards to avoid being targeted. There is no plan to reduce youth crime, which has exploded. Police are dealing with this upsurging crime. They don't have the resources or the right equipment to tackle offenders. And what we're seeing is a society heading towards a complete breakdown of law and order. Our solution is to get back to the basics of targeting the main perpetrators of crime. And this will require a strategic, multi-organisational approach and dedicated resourcing. Frontline policing needs to significantly be better resourced and valued. Drivers of crime need to be addressed, which includes drugs, alcohol, a lack of education and employment, and mental health issues. Organised crime is a major driver of crime. We need to focus on targeting criminal networks. We need to have tougher sentences to handle and deter this offending. So I'll leave you in the capable hands of Dr. Martin Langford, our candidate for Napier, to tell you more about how Democracy NZ will affect and bring real positive change to the Hawke's Bay and your businesses. You have a great day.
Well, g'day. I've been asked to give a short message to Presbyterian Support and the Hawke's Bay Chamber. First of all, I'm sorry I can't be at the event today. It seems I've decided to have the election again, so we've got to be just about everywhere at all times. Nonetheless, I'm grateful for the chance to talk to two organisations that I have a lot of time for. Business, because I fundamentally believe that business is a force for good, and we don't hear it enough from political leaders. Businesses are a combination of entrepreneurs with ideas, investors with savings, workers with time and talents, and customers with needs, coming together to trade value for value and getting stronger together in a beautiful, humanistic cooperation that we don't celebrate enough being business as a force for good. And to Presbyterian Support, I've always said real kindness is when you put your hand in your own pocket to help other people, rather than some politicians who promise to put their hand in someone else's pocket and then want to get adulation for their own kindness. In actual fact, organisations like Presbyterian Support and the work they do, both self-funded and government-funded, are essential to helping people in our community. So thank you for all of your work. And I'd like to think that in this election, ACT's values are the values of both organisations' members. Not only do we believe that business is a force for good, we believe that business success is essential for fixing this economy. It is absolutely critical that New Zealand raises productivity so people can take home more as a result of producing more. And that means that government has to do its bit in wasting less money. You see, when the government does less with more, as it's done for the last 6 years, businesses are forced to do more with less. Households are forced to do more with less. So government needs to become more efficient. In an ACT's alternative budget, we would severely reduce wasteful government spending and then refocus spending on critical frontline activities such as rebuilding infrastructure by sharing GST with the local council. But we'll also crack down on the red tape and regulation that makes it so much harder, for example, to build a home or rebuild the properties damaged by extreme weather events. ACT's approach to regulation means we must define the problem, then understand the solutions, costs and benefits, and then show the benefits are greater than the cost before making a new law. You might think that's just common sense and assume the government already does it. I can tell you they don't, and to the extent they try, they don't take it seriously. That's why we have the red tape and regulation that this country faces. And it's making us all poorer as people are forced to spend more time on compliance activity and less time on productive activity. Finally, this country needs to rebalance between consequences for criminals and kindness to criminals. Hawke's Bay is the site where there's been far too much kindness to gangs. In fact, the ACT Party says we need to build more prison spaces, change the sentencing act so the judges send them there, and then rehabilitate criminals from the inside, rather than not sending them there in the first place and never rehabilitating them at all. We need to return to those values, not only the consequences for criminals, but rights for victims. As was seen during the Hawke's Bay flood, we have those values wrong as a government under Labour. The next and final issue that I hesitate to address, but I believe strongly needs to be addressed, is the meaning of our treaty in a democratic society in 2023. It must be clear that we believe as a country in universal human rights, one person, one vote, and each person alike in dignity. Yes, we should cherish the moral language and culture. Yes, we should put right the wrongs of the past. And yes, we should certainly make sure that two kids born side by side in the same hospital have the same choices and chances in life. Everyone deserves 1.5 billion for the opportunity this country has to offer. That's true. But I would argue we'll do that much better in a liberal democratic society than the kind of separate society that the treaty is being misinterpreted to require on our current direction. If it sounds like you, respecting business and charity, and civil society, reducing government waste, reducing red tape and regulation, moving the pendulum between the rights of criminals and the rights of victims, and celebrating all of New Zealand's different cultures in a modern, multi-ethnic, liberal democratic society, then I hope you will give your party vote to ACT.
Hi everyone, and apologies that I can't be with you in person today. Hawke's Bay, and particularly its recovery from the devastation of Cyclone Gabriel, have constantly been on my mind. In fact, it was the very first place I visited on the first day of this election campaign, and I've visited the region many times since Cyclone Gabriel. And when I was there, I said local people are having to wait too long for certainty after the cyclone. We all know that rebuilding from disasters is complex, and of course it is. But the longer the recovery takes, the more people lose, the greater the risk of communities not re-establishing themselves, and the greater the mental and emotional toll too. So yes, rebuilding takes time, especially infrastructure like roads. But what I'm hearing directly when I'm there, and through our excellent candidates, Catherine Webb and Tuki and Katie Newman and Napier, and also our cyclone recovery spokesperson, Christine, is that people just want certainty. They want to know what's going to happen to them, and I think we all want to know that in those same circumstances. So I know you're doing it tough, and our national government plans some very practical steps to help. Firstly, let me say though that if there is a change of government after October 14, and of course I'm hoping for New Zealand's sake that there is, all commitments made to the people of Hawke's Bay by the current government will be honoured by a new government that I lead. I don't want you thinking that if there's a change of government, you start all over again. No, we will honour the commitments made in the recovery effort so far. In addition, we will appoint a cyclone and flood recovery ombudsman, so there's an independent and an impartial voice to ensure that government decisions being made are fair and equitable to landowners. National will also give priority to the construction of infrastructure needed to connect communities and regions, and this includes transport links such as roads and bridges, but also other critical infrastructure such as communication systems. We will also unlock the EQC assessment pipeline, where delays in determining land value represent a major barrier to post-disaster recovery. National will require the EQC to prioritise these assessments and to set performance targets to ensure that they are focused on delivering faster answers, because that's really what's important and what people want. I think those will be useful steps, but obviously there's a lot more to Hawke's Bay than the cyclone damage. Wherever I go, people are talking about the cost of living and their worries about the economy and about crime. The economy is front and centre of this election campaign, and the national government will manage the economy well to bring down the cost of living and so that we can all get ahead. We think that managing the economy well and providing tax relief so people get to keep more of what they earn is the best way to help people through these tough times. Our tax relief means up to $250 a fortnight cash for a family on an average household income. That's $120,000 a year with young kids and childcare. Or we're talking about $50 a fortnight for a person on the individual median wage. Now it's meaningful tax relief, and it's not a cost of living measure that only applies to carrots or to petrol or whatever. It's for you to decide what you want to do with it to help you in your circumstances. We will pay for it by cutting wasteful spending and by new revenue measures, like taxing foreigners who buy expensive houses and taxing offshore operators who are running online gambling here in New Zealand. And yes, the numbers totally stack up, and we absolutely can do this. So we can still increase spending on health and education every year and afford tax relief. Now I was told that 5 minutes for this message was the time, so that's it. I just want to say I applaud the good work of Presbyterian Services both in Hawke's Bay and elsewhere across the country. And I really also appreciate the engagement of the Chambers of Commerce. Keep it up, and thanks for having me with you on a screen, if not at least at your table. Have a great day.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning everybody. It's fantastic to be here back in the Hawke's Bay. As you'll be aware, I have been a regular visitor here, although my first visits to the Hawke's Bay after becoming Prime Minister were perhaps not the most ideal way to introduce myself as Prime Minister to this region, because it was in the immediate aftermath of Cyclone Gabriel. And can I begin my remarks this morning there by thanking you for your resilience, for your perseverance, and for the enormous amount of work that's gone into cleaning up after the cyclone and supporting this local community through what has undoubtedly been an incredibly challenging year so far. We are making significant progress with the cyclone recovery. It isn't easy, and I know that there's people in this room who have been doing a lot of that hard work to actually support this community through the recovery, and I want to thank you very much for everything that you've been doing in that regard. I saw firsthand in those visits just how much damage had been done. And as I've said in other parts of the country to people who watch those images on the TV news at night, I actually think this is one of the examples where the images on the TV news somewhat undersell the extent of the damage that we saw. Going and visiting those areas that were particularly badly damaged, it actually looked worse than it did on the TV news. Normally you see things the other way around in the job that I'm doing. In this case, actually, I could see that it was worse, and there was a big clean up and tidy up and recovery effort required. And we made a commitment to supporting this community through that, and we're going to see that through. About $2 billion has been invested in the cyclone recovery response so far. That includes rebuilding roads, repairing schools, building bridges back, clearing silt and slash, and resilience work, including repairing stock banks and so on. We're now moving through that response and recovery phase, and we know that there are things that we can do that will help to stimulate the economy and set you up better for the next stages of that response. Yesterday we announced an additional $10 million of funding for businesses and projects that are focused on jobs, that are focused on the workforce, and that are focused on bringing people back into these regions that have been affected by the cyclones. We also announced a further $15 million to help to lift homes in the Tairāwhiti area, where they're going to stay where they are, but we need to lift them higher in order to avoid future flooding risks. Those are the sorts of things that we need to continue to do. I said at the time that I was committed to a locally led recovery, and I still believe that that is the right approach. I still believe the answers to the recovery and to the rebuild rest here in the local community. And rather than government, central government sweeping in and taking over, I think our best approach is to walk alongside you and support the local community with the extra resources that central government can provide. I didn't want to create a central government authority like happened in Christchurch after the earthquakes. And actually that wasn't any faster than a locally led recovery. The decisions that we have taken around, not red zoning, but around buying out flood affected properties have actually been made a lot faster than the decisions were made around red zoning of houses after the Canterbury earthquakes. And it's happened with a good degree of local decision making in the process. So we can actually get good decisions, but still leaving local communities in charge. There's a further, I spoke to the Cyclone Recovery Minister last night, there's a further $12 million on the way to continue the clean-up of silt. I know that that's an ongoing process and there's more work to be done. We've put about $70 million into local councils and $50 million into commercial operators so far in silt removal. Around 2 million tonnes have been collected so far. In this year's budget we set aside $6 billion for a future resilience fund to do many of the things that we know need to be done, build more resilience into our communities. And I know that a big call on that $6 billion fund is going to come from the cyclone affected regions. We want to support you through there. But as other leaders have said, this election isn't just about cyclone recovery, we have to look to the future as well. I've set out my 5 key economic priorities for the country, which are about being the best little trading country in the world, making sure we become globally recognised as the most sustainable food producer in the world, with all of the things that go with that. We need to be a powerhouse of renewable energy generation in New Zealand and the intellectual expertise that goes with that, so that we can sell that to the rest of the world. We need to continue to drive our digital and creative sectors. I've seen examples of that here in the Hawke's Bay, of people who are at the pioneering end of the new digital technology revolution that's occurring around the world. Hawke's Bay is actually a fantastic place to base yourself if you're working in that sector, and there's a lot of opportunity to do more there. The work that we're doing around the space industry, around the gaming industry, have the potential to create good, well-paying jobs for people who can live almost anywhere, and the Hawke's Bay is a great place that could benefit a lot from that. And we need to continue to build out our premium tourism, health, well-being and international education sectors, because we bring New Zealand, we bring people into New Zealand who have money to spend when we do that, and there's a lot of opportunities ahead. There are 4 things we need to do in order to make sure we take up those opportunities. We need to make sure we've got a skilled workforce available to take up the jobs that are available, and that means investing in things like apprenticeships and in our education system, and reforming our education system to deliver the young New Zealanders particularly with the skills they need, but also New Zealanders who are retraining and re-educating themselves for the new economy. We need first-class infrastructure, something that we haven't invested in as a country for far too long, and we need to catch up. And we need solid government finances and responsible economic management, which is what we're committed to delivering as a government. There's a lot of talk about government debt. Our debt is still one of the lowest in the OECD. We still are going to get the books back into surplus, despite the fact that we've had to pump significant extra funding into regions like this who we've needed to support through the cyclone. And we're going to continue to invest in the future. Today I was very pleased to announce that we will build a new hospital here in the Hawke's Bay. Andrew Little, when he was the Minister of Health, said the Hawke's Bay was the next cab off the rank, and we're going to fulfil that commitment. We're spending 6 times more, we have spent 6 times more on health infrastructure, i.e. hospitals, in the last 6 years than was spent in the 9 years prior to that. And we know we've got a lot of catching up to do. Our hospitals are not in the state that we should be proud of. We've got to keep that momentum going. Under our Labour-led government, we will continue with that momentum, and the Hawke's Bay will benefit with a new hospital. You've waited long enough for it, we now need to get on and do it. And I've made a commitment that a re-elected Labour government will start the work on planning for that new hospital within the first 100 days of the election. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Can I end where I began? And thank you for your perseverance and for your resilience during a very, very challenging year. We will continue to work with you to ensure that this region bounces back better, that you recover, and that the opportunities that flow from all of that are shared with the whole of the community. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you, Prime Minister, here obviously in your capacity as leader of the Labour Party. So that concludes the presentations from our candidates, the 3 video presentations from the leaders, and of course 1 presentation from the leader of the Labour Party. So I'll now invite our candidates back up to the stage for the question and answer session. So while they're coming up, thank you to those who submitted questions. We've got plenty to work with, so it's unlikely that we will have questions live. Where are our candidates? So that you could just come on and thrash your way through. And I remember you're sitting somewhere different this time.
Yep.
Yep. Names on the back. So the way this is going to run, I'll read the questions out addressed to specific parties, and each party will be asked 1 question and 1 candidate from there. Right, the first question goes to the Democracy New Zealand Party. I'm assuming, Martin, you'll answer this. The question is regarding your job creation subsidy to support job creation and wages and improve skills and employability. What provisions will be in place to provide the skills and employability training to ensure a pool of skilled workers to hire with the help of the subsidy?
Here we go. In 1 minute. If you want to apply for the wage subsidy for a new employee, you should have to provide a framework for the training that your organisation can offer, setting out who exactly will be responsible for that training. The ideal situation being that businesses will use this job creation subsidy to grow their organisation, creating more permanent jobs. The job creation subsidy is targeted at the non-skilled employee. Nobody should leave school and receive an unemployment benefit. Taking the example of Germany, school leavers are encouraged to join a service provider for 12 months, i.e. the Defence Forces, hospital service, rest homes. These roles should be supported by the wage subsidy scheme, and in New Zealand we could even extend these roles into Department of Conservation and local government. This will introduce a work ethic and work experience. And for our previously unskilled individuals, that's a huge bonus.
Thank you, and within the timeline too. To the Labour Party, one of you candidates will answer this, I'm sure. In these difficult times, what do you propose to do to boost exports and open up access to new markets overseas in order to grow the economy? Stephen Jacoby, New Zealand International Business Forum, has asked that question.
Thank you. We are the best little trading country in the world, and Hawke's Bay is a exporter, and we've got to back our exporters. Trade deals are critical, and the Labour government has the track record for negotiating and doing the best trade deals for New Zealand. One of the things that I know that's important, having been in business for 20 years and worked with exporters, is that you need to get on those trade delegations. And we've committed to having a Trade Commission delegation into India in our first 100 days of government. That is significant because that is where we are going to see huge potential for doing business. Secondly, we are the government that absolutely set up the RSE scheme, and we have committed 19,000 RSE workers. We know that is a record number, and that's what's needed to get the apples picked and to grow good jobs here and get them out to export. And the third thing I think that's important is to make sure we have the logistical infrastructure and network and roading and freight rail to get our produce to our Port of Napier and out to the world. And we're seeing that work underway now.
Question for the National Party from the recently minted CEO of New Zealand Apples and Pears, Karen Morris. Question is, how will you support horticulture both locally and nationally to grow back better, reduce red tape and support them to resurrect their livelihood as quickly as possible post-cyclone?
It's a great question. So back in 2008, we were exporting through the Napier port about 12,000 apple containers. By 2017, under a national government, we had doubled the number of apple containers that were going through the Napier port. The apple industry had boomed under a national government, and that is because we were the envy of the world. The apple industry was doing amazingly. But in the last few years, there's been huge challenges, and growers have faced a lot of bureaucracy, red tape, and regulation. And I've seen firsthand the government cap the RSE scheme and seen millions of dollars of export fruit to rot on the trees because Labour wouldn't lift the RSE cap. Millions of dollars that could have been going back into the Hawke's Bay economy. Under a national government, that won't happen. We won't let millions of dollars left to rot on the trees. We're going to increase the RSE numbers and double the RSE numbers, because if we need to get that fruit picked at the optimum time, let's get on and get it done. We're also going to take away the resource consenting that's required for commercial food production, because in a cost of living crisis, we need to be getting our food producers producing the food without the resource consenting that they're currently needing. We're also going to focus on trade. At the moment, we pay 50% tariff on our apple boxes that go to India. We have to focus on reducing that tariff when we've got huge potential in these markets, but also focus on getting more out of the trade deals that we currently have, because this is going to get the wheels moving. I've seen it internationally in my roles. We need to back our agriculture exporters here in Hawke's Bay.
A question for the Green Party. Can you provide insights into how the Green Party's proposed environmental policies will impact small businesses, particularly in terms of regulations, costs and opportunities for sustainable growth?
Well, I slightly despair when I hear people talking about reducing red tape, because I know what that means. It means lowering standards. Why would we do that? You know, why would we not have the vision to actually improve our standards? Because New Zealand is well known for having high standards. So let's increase them. Let's not reduce them. You know, the cost of reducing environmental standards would be disastrous. We've seen that already. We need to have stronger environmental standards. And it would be a really, really good thing if we could also have stronger standards around working conditions and around animal rights. You know, we want to be the best country in the world for these things, not lowering ourselves. You know, we might as well say that we'll have child labour, or we'll have, I know that's not what they're saying, but why would you reduce things to the level of other countries which have poor environmental standards, poor working conditions, and abuse animals? Why can't we be the best? That's what I would suggest we do. And I know that lots of people in this room are already striving to be the best. So, that's something about and then of course there's the opportunities. Of course businesses need support to do this, and the Green Party is very much in favour of small and medium-sized enterprises and supporting them in all kinds of ways, with funding and low interest rates, funding for research and development, for waste reduction, the circular economy, training for green jobs and so on. We'll continue to invest and invest more in the Green Investment Fund, in the Decarbonising Industries Fund, so that small and medium-sized businesses and others can benefit from that and can in transition comfortably to a sustainable economy, and one with high ethical standards. Thank you.
Question addressed to the ACT Party. Cyclone Gabrielle shone a light on the importance of infrastructure for supply chains in Hawke's Bay, particularly for the export market. How would your party approach resilient and lasting solutions to this challenge?
Right, so ACT Party does not believe in a top-down centralized approach. We believe that it's people here on the ground who know best how the rebuild should be done. The role of the government is to provide them resources for that, and to provide minimal, clever regulation to facilitate the rebuild, which has resilience and adaptation to the climate change built into it. ACT would create a special economic zone for the cyclone-affected areas. Within that zone, the regulations related to the Resource Management Act would be minimized or eliminated to cut the red tape and speed up the rebuild. We would also share GST with the councils to make sure that councils have steady, sure stream of revenue, so they can plan, rebuild the infrastructure more into the future. They have the security of the finance. Finally, we would promote private-public partnerships. The way this works is we would work with the local government to put a list of the infrastructure that needs building, say for 30 years into the future. We would see what part of this infrastructure can be funded by the available government funding, and then whatever is beyond that cut-off point, we would make contestable for investors. For example, New Zealand Super Fund, other investors, and then we could have, for example, a road or other piece of infrastructure built next year, in 2 years' time, rather than in 10 years' time, and this would become a toll road. This is the way to speed up the build-up of infrastructure that we need.
And a question for Te Pāti Māori. In Hawke's Bay, many businesses are experiencing a shortage of skilled employees. How would your party help to build an agile system that responds quickly to employer and labour needs, ensuring those who want to gain skills are able to do so?
So investing in our own is the first. I want to acknowledge our high school kids here, Linda's Farm and my old high school, Karamu. Invest in our young people, like doubling our apprenticeships, cadetships, creating platforms. We also here in Hawke's Bay have the amazing robotics team. How many people have heard of them? From Mayfair. So we've got these young-minded entrepreneur kids that I think Hawke's Bay needs to help support them. So I would say, Te Pāti Māori would first and foremost look into Hawke's Bay, look at our bright minds, create pathways for them. Robotics is something all industries in Hawke's Bay could benefit, and we've got a nesting, a kohanga, what we call here in our reo, of growing that talent. So we would invest in our young people. But of course, there's immediate needs for our growers. So we would look and have responsible immigration laws that are based on skills. And we would have regions lead the skills that they need. Not an open slather, that we bring all sorts of people. We've heard the story up in Auckland where we brought a lot of people in and they didn't get jobs. So we would consider ensuring that it's a regionally led, skill-based program, but we must be investing in our own rangatira, our own rangatahi, and in using their entrepreneurial spirits to invest. They will go away, but we want them to come back into Hawke's Bay, and we want them to unlock the amazing skills that our rangatahi have. So we would invest in our own and have very considered immigration policies that are based on skills and needs, and to fill the gaps we have in Hawke's Bay.
Okay, that's the conclusion of an incident-free round one. Round two, back to you, Martin, Democracy New Zealand. How do you plan to balance the need to support a sustainable approach towards emissions while also ensuring the affordability of food and the success of the rural economy, given the strong opposition to new taxes on farming outlined in your policy? Do you propose any alternative measures to achieve emissions efficiency without imposing a direct emissions tax on farmers?
Bit controversial going on here. Here we go. Democracy New Zealand stands for evidence over ideology. New Zealand farmers are the most efficient in the world. Additional taxation on our food producers is simply virtue signalling. Currently, New Zealand climate emissions are calculated to contribute 0.17 of global emissions. The present government and other green groups would like you to swallow the notion that somehow our poultry emissions, which are extremely difficult to measure in any meaningful way, are a good reason to damage our economy. New Zealand policies surrounding agricultural methane emissions are deeply flawed and not supported by sound, updated science. So, further taxation on farmers will only drive up food prices. Involving farmers, however, in continuing professional development and peer support to support best practice in land management, freshwater protection and biodiversity, that should be all we need to show our overseas markets that we are taking care of our environment. And I would have to say that when I was back in the UK, my mother, who's 91 now, would only let me buy New Zealand lamb, and I was only allowed to buy New Zealand butter when I went shopping. Thank you.
I hope you still stick with that, Mark. Question for the Labour Party. How will your party support the recovery of tourism in Hawke's Bay, including financial assistance, appointing a senior minister for tourism and potentially re-establishing a dedicated Ministry of Tourism? And that comes from Hamish Saxton of Hawke's Bay Tourism.
Kia ora. So I'm proud to say that actually, since I became made candidate for Napier, I've been relentlessly advocating for this $1.2 million tourism package that we announced yesterday. So across the course of my career, I've advised a lot of people when they've been in acting roles, acting CEO, acting head of whatever. And one of the things I always say to them is don't act, just do the role. So there's no job description for being a candidate. So Carla Lee and Hamish Saxton were two of the first people that I visited when I got the candidacy. And the question I put to them was, what can you do right now? If you had a little bit more, what's the thing you could do that would make the biggest difference to the recovery? And Carla said we could scale up our regional business partner support for businesses if we had a bit more money. We've got the people, we can do that. And Hamish said the news every night, rotting apples on the beach, upside down caravans, the tourists aren't coming. What we need is a restart tourism package. So I have been banging on the door of ministers. I have probably damaged my friendship with Grant Robertson because I have been pushing so hard to get that money that was announced yesterday. So that's one thing that you can do as a local MP. There's a list of other things that we've done. We've put the Tourism Infrastructure Fund in place. We have already put $2.8 million into 15 projects across Central Hawke's Bay, Hastings and Hawke's Bay. We've worked to massively strengthen tourism links with China. And I don't think, just like with the Cyclone Ombudsman, that creating another ministry fits with national, let alone our policy. It's just another layer of bureaucracy. There's plenty of ways to support tourism through MB and NZT and all the different organisations we have already. Setting up bureaucracy takes time, it's a waste of resources, and we're better to do what I've shown can be done and just find out who are the people on the ground that if they get a little bit more, can do a lot more.
Right.
question for the National Party. Regarding your pledge to reduce unnecessary costs to business, can you explain the potential consequences of withdrawing the Fair Pay Agreement legislation, especially in terms of housing and workers' rights?
Yeah, look, the National supports raising incomes for everybody, but we do that by growing the economy. Fair pay agreements are just industry-wide union deals. They make it harder for businesses to operate. We need a flexible working environment, and we need to grow our economy. The more industries we support, the better confidence that businesses have in New Zealand. The more jobs there will be, the more high-value jobs there will be. We do not need to put strict rules in front of employers to make it harder to grow. We need to make sure that we are unleashing business, because the growing cost to businesses and the growing compliance. Let me just tell you that agriculture in farming, 30% of their week is spent with compliance. Now, if you add more regulation with the fair pay agreements that we are going to unwind, you make it harder for businesses to operate, because it is never going to catch everybody. There is always going to be a loophole. There is always going to be a problem, and it doesn't work for the individual. It is really important for us to grow our economy, to reduce the cost of businesses, so that businesses can be unleashed. Because when we back industry, we back our people, we have a strong education system, those people are able to fill those skilled positions that we are currently having to go out to the world to recruit, and we will continue to if we do not focus on our education at the moment. Because New Zealand can be the best small advanced country in the world. But the longer we put small little regulations here and there, making it harder for people to do business, we will not grow our housing. We will not grow everything that we need to make New Zealand a better place. So it is not going to be a sustainable option, and we are going to reverse it. We need to have higher incomes for everybody. We need to grow industry, grow our economy to achieve what we need to achieve.
A question for the Green Party. How will you make sure our businesses compete fairly with others from countries with lower ethical standards?
Well, I think I've already addressed this, and I think you probably know what I'm going to say, which is why would you want to lower standards to compete with countries that have low economic standards, low environmental, ethical and social standards? We should be competing with the best, okay? And we should be competing with people who provide the high standards. If there are some costs involved in that, it's nothing compared to the costs that will be visited on us with environmental disasters, such as we've already seen. Consumers are increasingly demanding goods and services that demanding sustainable and ethical practices. There can be serious negative consequences for companies that fall short of that, and we've seen that globally all the time. We should be aiming for higher, not lower standards, because it's the right and moral thing to do, and because it's perfectly consistent with making a profit. Of course we need to support businesses. Of course we need to make sure that there isn't unnecessary red tape, but we need to have those standards in place in order to compete. The Swiss make really good watches, I think you'd all agree. They don't decide to lower their quality in order to compete with Asian knockoffs. They continue to provide good quality watches, and people continue to buy them because that's what they're buying. And if they're going to be buying New Zealand products and services, because they know that we have high environmental standards, we have high working conditions for workers, and we have high animal rights standards. That's why they'll be buying our products. That's how we'll grow our industries and our businesses here, with support. And I've already outlined some of the support that will be provided by the Green Party. Thank you.
Question for the ACT Party. How will your parties plan to create a new minister in Ministry of Regulation with a focus on eliminating red tape, benefit small businesses in New Zealand, and what specific steps will be taken to ensure that regulations do not hinder their productivity and growth?
Over-regulation under this current government means that businesses can spend less time on doing what they do and more time on compliance. This means that this affects the productivity. This means that the productivity is low. And when you look at the problems that we have in New Zealand right now, you'll find that productivity is the low productivity is the root cause of all those problems. What ACT would do about it, we will introduce the Ministry for Reduction of Regulation and the Minister, and that would create rolling reviews of the current regulation to identify regulations that are not required anymore or that overlap with other regulations. There's plenty of regulations like this. The first sectors that would undergo the review would be construction, farming, healthcare, and early childhood and financial services. A couple of those, I think it is clear how it would benefit businesses to have less regulation in those areas. As a result, business owners would be able to spend more time doing what they do best, which is doing the core purpose of their business, and less time filling forms. As a structural engineer, running my own business, I know very well that quite often you end up having more paperwork than structural drawings, and you spend more time filling forms than doing structural calculations. We don't think this is right. We think we need a structural approach with this new ministry to minimize the over-regulation and the accumulation of legislation.
And the final question in round two for Te Pāti Māori. Regarding Te Pāti Māori's plan to increase the company tax rate to 33%, can you clarify how this increase will contribute to funding your proposed policies, and what economic effects do you anticipate this change will have on businesses and job creation in New Zealand? Yeah. We've got a third round.
So Te Pāti Māori's taxation policy, which was our first one we put out before the campaign, introduced a fairer tax system in Aotearoa. We don't think it's fair. So many of us pay more tax than the very wealthy, 2%. Our tax policies, if you go and check our online website, you can add in what you earn and it'll tell you what you'll save under the taxation policy of Te Pāti Māori. 98% of earners in Aotearoa, New Zealand, will get more. So we have a taxation policy that rebalances a fair and just taxation system. So we are introducing a wealth tax, those that earn over 200,000. Toddy has just shared the company tax, so going from 28% to 33%. Now, we know that there's tax avoidance in this country. We've done our own homework, and about $7 billion of people avoid paying tax. That's where Te Pāti Māori is rebalancing the tax system to actually pay for all the policies that are now. $7 billion of tax avoidance that's happening in this country. We're not anti-wealthy, we support people. We just think people that can earn more should pay more, and those that are propping up the rich, which is those that earn less, need a break. And so under 30,000, no tax. So we are not just going after company taxes, we're going after the vacant houses that are in Aotearoa, New Zealand. In Census 2018, there was 192 vacant homes in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Just imagine we put those on the market. So we're going to go after what we call ghost houses. We're also going to go after foreign earnings or companies that earn in Aotearoa and transfer funds overseas, banks. So all we're presenting is a fair tax system for all people in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the company tax is but just one.
Okay. So I can't help myself, so I've got a question for the audience. Can you just put your hand up if you're engaging in tax avoidance, please?
Well, you're not 2%.
Okay, no, we've got 10 minutes to do 12 minutes worth of questions, so we'll punch on with that knowledge, candidates. And I'll go to the Labour Party first because we haven't heard from you, Chrysler. The Labour Party aims to grow the agri-tech sector to $8 billion by 2030 and inject $100 million into the venture capital fund. Could you elaborate on the specific strategies and initiatives you intend to implement to achieve this ambitious goal, and how will you ensure that the benefits are distributed equitably across the sector?
Kia ora no tātai. Tuatahi, gee, that was a long question, and this is feeling eerily like karaoke. Well, no, I'm just just want to point out a couple of initiatives that are already underway under Labour. One is facilitated by Kānoa, we distributed the Provincial Growth Fund. Secondly, there's been an investment of $568 million for the Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund. Say that quickly. We're talking about innovation. I'm looking around at the diverse faces and no doubt ideas in this room. And no matter where I go, a saying that I was taught when I was growing up comes to mind. If the people for whom the plan is made are not a part of the plan will never work. So as an MP, my role would be to come out to you all and ask you how you want the investment to be spent, because you know your region best. That said, me haere ngātahi tātou. Obviously I'm standing in a Māori seat, so we have to move forward with bearing in mind mana whenua, kaitiakitanga, and the benefits for Aotearoa whānui, all of New Zealand. So obviously I'm very pleased that Māori were a strong part of the trade contingent to China, and the commitment from government that Māori will be a strong part of the contingent to India. International sport utilised the Māori culture very well. And believe you me, having worked for New Zealand Rugby, they make lots and lots of money. And I think as business, we have the opportunity to capture the value of Māori branding, kaupapa Māori, for the value of the New Zealand economy. O te rā tātou katoa. Kia ora.
So for Martin, the Democracy New Zealand Party question is, how do you anticipate the proposed policy changes such as revising the Reserve Bank Governor's mandate, introducing a tax-free income threshold and reviewing resource management legislation will impact businesses in New Zealand? And what strategies do you plan to implement to support businesses in adapting to these changes? Go.
What a question. Thank you. I'm a specialist on this, being a dentist. It's brilliant. Economy. I've had to talk with the party, and this is what we've come up with. We would revise the Reserve Bank Governor's mandate so that his only role is to control inflation within the 2% band. Currently, the mandate requires the Reserve Bank of New Zealand to ensure price stability and maximum sustainable employment. Democracy New Zealand understands that the free market is always the best way to allow the job market to normalise. Employers have a much better understanding of what's required for their own businesses. Democracy New Zealand advocates for less government intrusion in our lives and our businesses. We aim to review the option of introducing a tax-free income threshold to provide extra cash to meet living expenses and hopefully to allow discretionary spending. The Resource Management Act is currently a big fat handbrake. It needs to be far less complex, and I apologise, but let's cut the red tape. Allow councils to free up more land for housing, reduce building costs, reform the building legislation, and review building products regulations. Thank you.
I'll go to the National Party now. Regarding your plan to cut red tape and getting more people off welfare and into work to reduce bottlenecks in the economy, could you provide specific examples of the red tape you plan to cut and the strategies you'll employ to achieve this goal? Please.
Yeah, no, we've already touched on a bit of the regulation and the red tape, but we do need to make it easier for businesses to do business, farmers to farm and growers to grow, because that's what's going to strengthen our economy. And at the moment, the economy's being strangled, businesses are being strangled. Just the other day, I had an email from a grower who gave me a bullet point of 40 different regulations that this government had brought in that was restricting the growth of our exports. The other day, I was out on a farm, a sheep milking farm, and they wanted to increase their exports, but they said it was going to cost them about $100,000 in the auditing process. So again, that is a lot of export money that could be going back into our economy that we are currently restricting. But I'll give a couple of examples. The RMA, talking to property developers at the moment, and it's just taking so long to get things built. We need to repeal the RMA. That will happen within our first 90 days under a national government. But we also need to move on the building consenting as well, because we need to get infrastructure built, we need to get housing built, and under a national government we will get that infrastructure built and we will take away the red tape. We're going to open up biotechnologies, because this is an opportunity to also grow our agriculture exports. But we need to support business, because this is what's going to grow our economy. And I've seen it firsthand in the horticulture sector. Why are we inflicting so much cost on these businesses, so much regulation and so much red tape? Because the only way to get the wheels moving is to open up and allow it to happen.
Question for the Green Party. What concrete steps will you take to identify and support new business opportunities in sustainability sectors and practices, especially in assisting inventors and providing income support for SMEs during product development?
Okay. Just to give some concrete examples, we support the existing Green Investment Fund and the Decarbonising Industry Fund, and will increase funding in that. What they do is basically help businesses to transition to low carbon economy, and they attract private investors who will invest in these initiatives. And apart from increasing our funding for that, we will also encourage more small and medium-sized enterprises to be able to apply for and win the grants and low-interest loans. We'll continue to, we'll commit to government departments buying more goods and services from New Zealand businesses, and encourage social enterprises to bid for procurement contracts. We'll increase funding for training for young people and training for green jobs. We hope that thousands of new jobs will be created through the processes of transitioning to a green economy, and we will provide training and retraining wherever that's possible. Individuals who are involved in research and development for sustainable businesses but are not yet deriving income for such enterprises, at the moment they're discouraged from doing that. But under Green Party policy, all those who are not receiving any other income, including those who are not yet receiving income from their projects, will receive the income guarantee of $385 a week and the universal tax exemption for the first $10,000 of income. And finally, for businesses who want to invest in the circular economy, in other words, recycling, upcycling and so on, they will also be supported, funded by a levy on waste that goes into landfill. So those are some of the specific initiatives that we will support.
For the ACT Party, how do you plan to amend the Employment Relations Act to provide greater protection for contractors, and what safeguards will be put in place to ensure this protection is balanced and fair for both contractors and employers?
So about 5% of New Zealanders are contractors, and 90% of them enjoy their job. Contracting offers autonomy, flexibility to people, and allows for economic activity that would otherwise not exist at all. Current legal situation creates uncertainty for companies that use contractors because they can challenge their employment status. There are numerous businesses that will simply go out of business if they are not able to use contractors, and current situation makes future for such businesses uncertain. ACT is proposing to amend the Employment Relations Act to exclude independent contractors from definition of an employee, to remove this uncertainty and allow for economic activity to grow for the benefit of contractors and their clients. To ensure fairness, contracts would have to meet certain minimum criteria, including requirement for written contracts that has an explanation to workers that this is a contract, permission for workers to perform tasks for other employers, and similar things. In any case, contractors would have legal recourse under the Fair Trading Act instead of Employment Act. We believe that this change in the regulation would allow the businesses that use contractors to grow and plan future better with more certainty, and also that it would allow them to offer better conditions to the contractors.
Thank you. And our final question for Te Pāti Māori, and looking at this Mecca, you might have covered a little bit previously, but I'm sure you'll find a way to expand on it. Shifting the tax burden from income to wealth and introducing a foreign companies tax are substantial changes. What measures will you take to prevent tax avoidance or evasion? And there's no avoiders in this room. And how will these changes affect the overall tax and revenue budget?
So I mentioned we have a wealth tax. The 7 billion I identified that we've done our research of people that are not paying their fair share of tax. So that's, and how we're going to do that is obviously resource the Serious Fraud Office. We don't think they're properly resourced to go after those that hide and trust or do things that to avoid tax. So there is a small percentage in this country that does do that. So this is how we're going to, by investing in the SFO. I don't know if I've got another question, but in the time I want to talk about, sorry, I know this isn't the question, but are we going to have a closing? Or was this it?
No, this is it.
Okay, cool. I started a conversation about the Māori economy. I want to bring it back to Hawke's Bay. I want to acknowledge Up To Farms. I want to acknowledge Ngai Tūkarangi Orchards. I want to acknowledge Tato Tato. I want to acknowledge Pāhuwera. These are local iwi and Māori owned businesses here in Hawke's Bay. I want to acknowledge Tautani Farm. That's owned by iwi. Yeah. So when I talk about the Māori economy and I talk about Tuaropaki over in Taupo, we've got it here in Hawke's Bay. They are expanding, they are growing, and they're contributing to the economy. And they're only on the tip of the iceberg. But for all our businesses, we need to diversify our markets. We can be the best growers and producers of food, but if the market doesn't take our kai, then we're in shoot street. So Te Pāti Māori is wanting to set up a Māori Trade Commission because we believe that we can actually diversify our markets. I was the minister that went into India last year. I've been the minister that's been to Singapore. 95% of Singapore's food is imported. They have a 2030 strategy of actually securing not just food, but places here in Aotearoa. They've asked me about treaty settlements and about sea space because they want to bring capital into this country in partnership with iwi to grow food. They want to store food because they're so vulnerable. I've been to Turkey. Turkey has offered to be the gateway into the Middle East. I've been with all officials and I've given this to the government and we've still got opportunities there in this space. I'm just giving you an example of Te Pāti Māori's policy.
Got it.